Imagine waking up to learn that the world had almost ended while most people were asleep. In October 1962, two nuclear superpowers stood seconds away from disaster. Not because they wanted war, but because fear, pride, secrecy, and bad information pushed them toward it. This is the Cuban Missile Crisis. 13 days when one wrong move could have turned the Cold War into the last war. To understand the crisis, start with geography. Cuba sits just 90 miles from Florida. After Fidel Castro's revolution in 1959, Cuba moved closer to the Soviet Union, while Washington saw a communist state in the Caribbean as an intolerable threat. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961 convinced Castro that another American attack was possible. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev saw an opportunity: protect Cuba, strengthen Soviet prestige, and secretly place nuclear missiles close enough to reach major American cities. But Khrushchev also had another motive. The United States already had nuclear missiles in Turkey and Italy, aimed at the Soviet Union. To Moscow, putting missiles in Cuba looked like strategic balance. To Washington, it looked like a direct challenge. The story broke open on October 14, 1962, when an American U-2 spy plane photographed missile sites under construction in Cuba. 2 days later, President John F. Kennedy was shown the images. His advisors were divided. Some pushed for immediate airstrikes and invasion. Others warned that attacking Cuba might trigger Soviet retaliation in Berlin or even nuclear war. Kennedy formed a secret advisory group, XCOM, and for days the public knew nothing. One underrated detail is how uncertain the intelligence really was. American officials knew missiles were arriving, but they did not know everything on the island. Soviet forces in Cuba already had tactical nuclear weapons that could have been used against an invasion force. Many American planners did not fully grasp that danger at the time. A conventional invasion might have crossed an invisible nuclear line. Kennedy rejected a surprise attack and chose a naval quarantine, avoiding the word blockade because a blockade could be considered an act of war. On October 22nd, he addressed the nation, revealing the missiles and warning that any nuclear launch from Cuba would be treated as an attack by the Soviet Union. The world held its breath. Then came the near misses. Soviet ships approached the quarantine line. American forces went to DEFCON 2, one step below nuclear war. On October 27th, known as Black Saturday, a Soviet surface-to-air missile shot down an American U-2 over Cuba, killing Major Rudolph Anderson. Many expected Kennedy to retaliate. He did not. That same day, another U-2 accidentally strayed into Soviet airspace near Alaska, forcing both sides to scramble fighters in a moment of terrifying confusion. Even more dangerous, a Soviet submarine, B-59, was being hunted by American depth charges meant as warning signals. The crew, cut off from Moscow and exhausted, believed war may have started. They considered launching a nuclear torpedo. The launch required approval from 3 officers. One of them, Vasily Arkhipov, refused. His decision may have helped save the world. Behind the scenes, diplomacy moved through public and private channels. Khrushchev sent Kennedy one message offering to remove the missiles if America promised not to invade Cuba. Then another, tougher message demanded the removal of American missiles from Turkey. Kennedy's team chose to answer the first message publicly and handle the Turkey issue privately. Attorney General Robert Kennedy met Soviet Ambassador Anatoly Dobrynin and signaled that the United States would quietly remove the Turkish missiles later, but not as a public trade. On October 28th, Khrushchev announced that the Soviet missiles would be withdrawn. In return, Kennedy pledged not to invade Cuba. The world stepped back from the edge. The Cuban Missile Crisis matters because it proved that nuclear war can come not only from aggression but from miscalculation, rigid military plans, and leaders trapped by their own threats. Afterward, Washington and Moscow created a direct hotline and later moved towards arms control. The lesson is uncomfortable but essential. In a nuclear crisis, survival depends not on strength alone, but on restraint, communication, and the courage to slow things down when pressure is at its highest.